We interrupt this broadcast with a special announcement. Are you suffering from PMD, post-Marvel disorder? Common symptoms are long sleepless nights, a broken heart, feeling anxious because you don't know what to do with your now free time, and a splitting headache after your favorite theory that you spent days conjuring up gets shot down into a million pieces. If any of this sounds like something you're going through, then we have the cure for you. We call it Phase 1. With this magic elixir, you'll be transported back to the good old days of Phase 1 of the MCU and all its iconic moments. The memories. Where were you when the Avengers first came together? No, not the time that they were at each other's throats, but the first time they really came together in the Battle of New York. From Bruce Banner's entrance through the fire and rubble on a motorcycle, to his iconic line,
"That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry."
To then punching the lights out of a Chitauri Leviathan, it still gives me the goosebumps. What it does for me is the Chitauri pressing pause on their path of destruction to yell and scream at Earth's mightiest heroes in an intimidation act. And as a response, we get that amazing dolly around our heroes, who, after a bunch of setbacks and an unfortunate loss, which we'll get to later, are united as one. Without any words, they screamed back, "We are the Avengers, and we're prepared and preparing to go to war with Chitauri and any other threat in the universe." Look at that team-up shot. It's beautiful. What's the one rule in superheroism? Never reveal your identity. I guess Tony missed that memo, huh?
I am Iron Man.
In a press conference gone right, I guess in Tony's case, Mr. Stark had one job: play off his battle with Obadiah Stane as nothing more than prototypes malfunctioning, and reveal the Iron Man as his bodyguard. Things take quite a turn when a reporter questions Tony's story, and Stark's ego steps out from behind the curtain when he infers that he may be a superhero, which was never brought up. In a twist of events and almost as a middle finger to the reporter who thinks of Tony as nothing more than a playboy philanthropist, Tony reveals he is Iron Man, shocking the world in film and theaters everywhere. This moment broke the rules of what a superhero film must be and set the standard for the MCU. Before Steve Rogers gained the muscle, he was just a scrawny little thing with a dream to fight for his country. Chosen for his defiance of rules and societal norms, Steve Rogers was transformed and became taller, ripped, and more powerful than ever. It's okay, Peggy, we can't keep our eyes off him either. This newfound power was put to the test after HYDRA infiltrated the Army's little science experiment and made off with the super serum after taking the life of poor Dr. Erskine. I won't go into too much detail, but all I can remember is being amazed at the fact that Steve Rogers, without shoes nonetheless, chased down and caught up to a car on foot across who knows how many miles. Not to mention punching through glass in one shot underwater to catch the dastardly HYDRA agent. Just don't forget the cyanide pill. Oh, he forgot about the cyanide pill. The entire first act of Iron Man is an iconic moment in itself. Tony, locked away deep in a cave by the 10 Rings, creates the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card with the help of a scientist by the name of Ho Jensen, the Mark I armor. It's not the sexiest suit compared to what's to come, but this stiff bucket of bolts steamrolled through the 10 Rings, and that's not even what's most iconic about this scene. To me, what's most iconic is Jensen telling Stark to not waste his life before passing.
Don't waste it. Don't waste your life.
What's iconic to me is the shots of Tony burning his former life away as he destroys the weapons he helped create. What's iconic to me is also the sacrifice of one man that led Tony eventually sacrificing himself for the entire universe. Hey, if that's not iconic, I don't know what is. The scene was perfectly set. Rain poured down as lightning traversed the skies. The sound of thunder roared almost like it was calling out to Thor, who easily battled his way through S.H.I.E.L.D. to recover his one true love, Mjolnir. Along with the music, the scene was almost like poetry. After being casted out of Asgard and stripped of his power, this moment was supposed to be Thor's redemption. The look on his face after reuniting with Mjolnir was pure joy, until it wasn't. No matter how hard he tried, Mjolnir wouldn't budge, stealing that joy and leaving him in a state of shock and confusion, screaming at the sky and his father in anger. Without the hammer and power, who is Thor? What does it mean to be worthy? Did you realize Hawkeye was in this scene because much like his run in the MCU, completely overshadowed? It was the big three all along. Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor have always been the pillars that have held the Avengers together through thick and thin. Okay, maybe not always. We all know about Cap and Tony's infamous battle, But what we fail to talk about more is the time Iron Man went head-to-head with Thor, and then Thor went head-to-head with Cap. It's an amazing fight, and it's so interesting looking back on this scene now, because much of the chemistry we see this trio possess stems from this initial duel. Thor casting lightning into Tony, giving him a power boost, Cap throwing Mjolnir into his shield to create a sonic boom. These insane moments from Avengers Endgame all stems from this Phase 1 moment. Without this initial ego-driven brawl between the big three, who knows what would have gone down against Thanos? Who else had no idea who Natasha Romanoff was or what she was capable of in Iron Man 2? just me? Alright, but regardless, we have to give Marvel props of how they set the character up. Under the alias Natasha Rushman, the soon-to-be Black Widow infiltrated Stark Industries to answer one question. Is Tony capable of leading the Avengers? We all know her answer to that question. But Stark's qualification isn't what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the moment Natasha decided to drop the act and show her true colors. Infiltrating Hammer Industries, Romanoff skillfully and gracefully took down at least a dozen security guards alone in the time it took Happy to take down one. This scene set the stage for how much of a boss Natasha is, and made it clear that in a world dominated by men, she can clearly hold her own. Tired of playing America's hero on stage, Steve Rogers took things into his own hands. Literally. Learning that Bucky's unit had been taken captive by HYDRA forces, Cap makes this his sole mission to free them despite government orders. With the help of Peggy and Howard Stark, Rogers goes on a solo mission with his prop shield in hand behind enemy lines, and single-handedly frees the captive soldiers. The best line to me from this scene is Steve being asked, "Who are you supposed to be?" And Steve responds, "I'm Captain America." The sequence of events changed Cap's trajectory from actor to the soldier he was meant to be, earned him the respect of his peers and superiors, giving us the Howling Commandos, and introduced the world to the Red Skull, who hopefully will make his grand return to the MCU to wreak havoc on the world once again. Who knew how intimidating a hero could be if they simply didn't speak? This is a sentiment many fans have had while watching Tony in his finished Mark III armor deal with the 10 rings who have occupied Gelmyra. Everything about this scene screams iconic. The scene captured real-life consequences many in the Middle East face day to day. So when Iron Man dropped in with an epic superhero landing and took the bad guys down one by one, my heart screamed in joy. Also, ripping the head honcho through a wall and leaving him to deal with the people's lives he ruined is top-notch. Also, we can't leave out Tony taking down a tank with a missile much smaller than the one he was hit with when shot out of the sky. Any fan needing a reason to remember why they fell in love with the MCU needs to go watch this scene ASAP. I'm gonna say 2 words and you'll know exactly what scene we're talking about here. Ready? Puny God. I don't think anyone could forget seeing Hulk thrash Loki around like he was a rag doll. Don't get me wrong, I love Loki now, but at this time, I hated his guts. So seeing him get his just due was simply amazing. To think he wanted to take Tony's offer to get a drink after all this too, the nerve! This just goes to show never think you can do whatever you want to without facing the consequences. Treat someone poorly, maybe you'll have a rough day or get a nail in your tire. Destroy an entire city and flaunt your status as a god, you might have a huge green man coming to your door who lets his fist do all the talking. Just saying. Oof, that's gotta hurt. Sometimes failure can bring humility, and humility at times can be your greatest weapon. This is a lesson Thor had to learn the hard way after pretty much falling flat on his face after Mjolnir wanted nothing to do with him. After apologizing to his brother for all the harm, pain, and sorrow he caused, Thor sacrificed his own life to save Jane and the rest of the world from Loki's wrath. This sacrifice made Thor worthy once again of the powers of, well, Thor, returned him to the living and got out of those earthly garbs. Oh, and made quick work of the Destroyer. Seems Loki should have had a backup plan just in case Thor did have a change of heart. I don't know, maybe 2 Destroyers? Or just trying to play villain? I hate to break it to you, but your track record after this, Loki, won't be too promising. The story of Captain America is one of honor, bravery, and sacrifice. Even though I know Steve survives and one day makes his way back to Peggy, it still brings a tear to my eye every time I see the scene where Rogers decides to crash the plane down in the ocean to save millions of lives. Something like that takes a crazy amount of strength. Even more so because in his final moments, he didn't flinch. Cap didn't show 1 ounce of fear or even regret. His only thought was to ease the mind of the woman he loved and be with her. Honor her in a way. I really hope we get to see Steve's life with Peggy. However, maybe that part of his life needs to be left alone, huh? From this moment to everything that came after, Steve Rogers already shared and sacrificed enough. It's his turn to be happy. We love you, Steve. Sometimes you gotta run before you can walk. These are the infamous words Tony Stark uttered before taking his first flight as Iron Man in his Mark II suit. Watching this scene now, it has a certain amount of nostalgia to it. First, the all-silver design representing the flaws the suit had, but it was still beauty nonetheless. Then there's seeing the HUD being activated and hearing the suit come online for the first time. Then there's what this test flight represents. It's not like Iron Man was the first superhero film we'd ever seen, but knowing the journey this one flight leads Tony, and the MCU entirely, makes this moment just that much more special. I mean, who knew this playboy philanthropist would become the man who would save the entire universe? A man who didn't waste his life, as Jensen would say. Tony was right. Sometimes you do have to run. Okay, maybe Tony should have walked instead of running. In all reality, he probably would have if he knew he would be flying into a giant wormhole. After the blunder that was the World Security Council sending a missile to New York rather than allow the Avengers to finish the battle, Iron Man made a choice. Rather than allow an unstoppable weapon of mass destruction to take the lives of millions, he flew that sucker right into the Chitauri Wormhole, detonated it, and stopped the Chitauri invasion. The downside was nearly losing his own life in the process, having to deal with sleepless nights and PTSD. But we can't win them all, can we? Scenes like this always make me think, who really is the villain? Is it the evil aliens from space seeking world domination, or the government who's being tasked to be the hero we all rely on? CBR asking the hard-hitting questions. This entry will probably be one of the most underrated moments in the MCU due to the film not getting the love it deserves. If that wasn't enough of a clue, we're talking about the Incredible Hulk, and specifically Hulk vs. Abomination. Many fans, some unspoken, will say this fight is one of the greatest fights in MCU history, if not in all action films. Wow. After rewatching, I have to agree. This battle is nothing but raw primal carnage between two raging beasts. There's epic explosions, extreme acts of violence, and our very first Hulk smash. I mean, if it wasn't for Betty Ross, Hulk would have pulled a Superman, if you know what I mean. Sadly, since this film, we've barely seen anything close to this version of the Hulk and probably never will again. He must have gone to the same place Abomination was sent, Disney Purgatory. That's definitely where Edward Norton was sent. Another severely underrated scene and fight in the MCU is Iron Man and War Machine versus the Hammer Drones in Iron Man 2. Like Hulk's battle with Abomination, this fight is pure carnage and overall fun. As soon as their helmets are put on, drop bullets just begin to fly in each and every direction. And the Iron Duo is holding nothing back, trying to one-up each other. Who is the big gun, as they would put it? I would say Tony after he lets his secret trick out of the bag. A laser that can seemingly cut through anything. Makes me wonder where that trick was against Thanos. I would recommend any fan of the MCU to go back and rewatch this scene. You won't be sorry, and it may make you even more excited for the upcoming Armor Wars series on Disney+. What's scarier to you? A clown like Pennywise, or a raging Hulk chasing you down a tight corridor and, subsequently, about to backhand your life away? I would say the latter. Good thing Thor came when he did. Before becoming the Professor, Hulk was an uncontrollable monster with essentially zero weaknesses. Also, apparently, he's a master of stealth. He even struck fear into Natasha, who is probably one of the most fearless members of the Avengers. Now yes, Thor stepped in and literally saved her life, but other than a few good shots, he wasn't much of a match for Hulk either. Watching this scene back, if it wasn't for that lone fighter jet, Thor may have gone to the great beyond, and who knows the trajectory the MCU would have gone if that happened. Maybe that should be a future video, huh? Let us know in the comments below. In comparison, this scene is nothing like the others. It doesn't contain action, emotion, or any real weight to the MCU. It's just hilarious and a perfect encapsulation of what happens when an Asgardian meets Earth. In Asgard, the proper way to ask for more of something is apparently to throw your cup on the ground and shout, "Another!" Didn't anyone teach you manners, Thor? On Earth, we ask nicely for things. Also, we don't just walk in the middle of the road, we use crosswalks, you silly guy. Last thing, I don't think you'll find a horse in a pet store. Like I said, this scene in comparison to the rest of the MCU is really nothing. But when you look at Thor's character arc, this was one of the first moments we got a little bit of Thor's comedic side, which we would all grow to love. Anytime I think of where a country's power lies, I think of the military. However, now I think I should be thinking about the Hulk. In Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner is pinned down and forced to transform. And I bet Thunderbolt Ross wishes he left Banner alone because of what happened next. Hulk wrecked the military without breaking a sweat, destroying anything and everything they had to offer. We have to give a shout out to Special Ops Commando Emil Blonsky for stepping up and taking charge. This man, injected with a variant of the super soldier serum, tried to take the Hulk on one-on-one. We have to admit he tries his best, but getting kicked in the chest with the Hulk would do anybody in. Ouch. Also, this scene shows the Hulk could be calmed down long before Natasha took the job. Speaking of Betty Ross, Where is she? To cap off our trip down memory lane, we need to talk about the moment that made the MCU what it is. After Loki incited the God of Thunder into his trap, a powerless but armed Agent Coulsen stood as the world's last line of defense. Courage, however, would not be enough. Not even honoring the idea, Loki forced his scepter into the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent's back and took his life. While this moment was heartbreaking, Coulson's passing, along with the bloody Captain America trading cards, became the catalyst that finally brought the Avengers together and created the MCU as we know it. As the name depicts, our favorite heroes just needed something to avenge, and avenge they did. Due to Coulson's heroics, the Avengers would go on to save the world from the likes of Loki, Ultron, and Thanos. While you haven't been mentioned since, you live in all of our hearts, Coulsen, as the man who started it all. As Phase 1 wears off and we make our way back to reality, we have to give an honorable mention to the time Steve Rogers jumped on what could have been a live grenade. Even without the body, endurance, and power, Steve has always shown he's been worthy. Can we see the Steve and Mjolnir shot one more time? Yeah, there it is.